In 2007, a cluster of Iowa stroke patients stopped craving cigarettes. Not gradually, not with effort, but immediately and permanently, and neuroscientists still cannot fully explain why the destruction of a single buried fold of tissue erased an addiction as if it had never been wired in. That fold is called the insula, and until very recently, your doctor probably wasn't taught what it does. The brain you were taught about in school had 4 lobes: frontal, parietal, temporal. Occipital, clean, mappable, teachable. That framework was codified in the late 19th century when anatomists worked with preserved tissue and mapped what they could see from the outside. The insula isn't on the outside. It's not even close. It sits buried inside the lateral sulcus, the deep groove running along the side of the brain, concealed beneath a flap of overlapping cortex called the operculum. To see it, you have to pull that flap back. When you do, there it is, a crumpled island of gray matter, roughly 5 centimeters long, densely connected to almost every major brain system simultaneously. Johann Christian Ryle found it in 1809. He named it the insula, Latin for island. He described it as singular, distinct. Then medical education moved on without it. For the next century and a half, the insula appeared in anatomy textbooks the way a footnote appears in a legal document, a label on a cross-section. No function assigned with confidence. Students were not taught what happens when it's damaged, what it governs, or why it exists at that precise depth behind that specific cover of tissue. The working assumption, when there was one at all, was that it was a secondary sensory relay. A switchboard, useful probably, but not critical. Here's where that assumption falls apart. The insula is not a relay. It is the structure that makes you feel like something is happening to your body right now. Every heartbeat you consciously notice. Every hunger pang that pulls your attention. The tight, rising feeling of anxiety before a difficult conversation. The specific wrongness of food that has turned. These experiences are not produced by your heart, your stomach, or your gut. They are produced by the insula, which reads incoming signals from every organ in your body and generates a felt sense of the interior, what neuroscientists now call interoception. Your live sense of yourself, moment to moment, is largely an insula product. Antonio Damasio's work in the 1990s began to make this visible. His research on emotion and decision-making suggested that bodily feeling was not a side effect of cognition, it was the foundation of it. The insula was the architecture underneath. Then the addiction data arrived, and the stakes got harder to ignore. Nasir Naqvi at the University of Iowa published the study in 2007. Stroke patients with insula damage who had been heavy smokers all reported the same thing, independently of each other. The urge was simply gone. Not suppressed, not manageable with willpower. Gone. One patient described it to researchers with a phrase that keeps appearing in the literature, that his body had forgotten it needed to smoke. The statistical signal was extraordinary. Insula-damaged smokers were more than 100 times more likely to quit without effort or relapse than stroke patients who had damage elsewhere in the brain. This is not a disrupted habit. A disrupted habit leaves the urge intact and removes the behavior. This was the urge itself gone. The straightforward reading is clean. Craving is a felt physical need. The insula generates felt physical states. Damage disrupts the signal, case closed. But that doesn't account for what came next. Research led by Bud Craig at the Barrow Neurological Institute found that the posterior insula doesn't only map body signals. It contributes to your perception of time passing, the moment-to-moment sense that you are the same continuous person who existed 3 seconds ago. It processes the subjective duration of pain, of pleasure, of anticipation. Patients with specific insula lesions lose the sense that the present moment is anchored. Time stops feeling like a through line. The self stops feeling like a thread. Which forces a question that no neuroscience textbook has answered cleanly. If this region sits at the intersection of self-awareness, time perception, interoception, emotional experience, and craving, why was it the one structure left off the standard anatomical map for over a century after Ryle first found it? The charitable answer is that it was simply hard to reach. The insula doesn't respond to light or sound. You can't probe it easily with early instruments. The regions that got mapped first were the ones that lit up in response to the outside world. The insula responds to the inside. We built our entire model of the human brain from the outside in. And the one region most implicated in the subjective experience of being a person, the felt sense of existing, is the one we agreed to stop short of. That wasn't ignorance. That was a choice. What did we decide we weren't ready to find?